Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy XIV. In this video, we're going to be covering the level 61 dungeon as part of the Stormblood main scenario quest, the Sirensong Sea. For the most part, this dungeon shouldn't be much of an issue for anyone doing it, especially from the dungeons you had to do prior to it. It drops item level 260 gear, however, odds are you've already picked up some item level gear that's higher from some of the previous dungeons or from the poetic tomestones that you have from said previous dungeons, so keep that in mind. If you have the gear from the old content from level 60 that is higher item level, then you don't need to worry about the gear that drops from here at all. I will say this though, if you're somebody like me on my main character who has desynthesis, it's good. It's real good. So the Sirensong Sea, level 61, I would recommend doing it a handful of times to get some EXP to help you through the main scenario quest. As you can see, we managed to get a queue for it pretty quick. But the dungeon itself is very straightforward. As a healer, there's only a few things you'll have to watch out for. Now, I don't really advocate for this very highly, but in a lot of leveling dungeons, tanks like to go ham. You know, they're used to tanking the level 60 dungeons where you can have you could stack up all of the enemies and you don't even have to think about anything, and I didn't mean to do that. And that stops becoming a thing more in the leveling dungeons. Technically, Sirensong Sea is still okay to do it in, but I'll just make commentary about certain pulls that could be somewhat threatening if you have a tank doing large pulls on it. This first part's really easy. It's a few of these banshees, a few more are going to pop out of the water, and you have the NPCs here to assist you. These enemies just straight up just don't do a lot of damage, so I'm going to spend a lot of my time here just DPSing. Give the tank a regen, throw down the bubble right here, and then just go ham. Now, if I was level 62, which I actually will be before the latter half of the dungeon, I get the level 62 White Mage ability. One of the best abilities in the entire game. Not even just as a level 62 ability, just one of the best abilities in the game. And that is Thin Air. I will have that before the end of this dungeon. Thin Air makes it so I have no MP cost for like 12 seconds. Just no MP cost. The amount of holies you can do in that time. Oh yeah, and that's all I'm thinking about is the holies. Obviously, in some endgame content, in raiding in particular, there are times where Thin Air, when combined with something along the lines of like Cure 3 spam on big AoE damage, that's really good. But my first thought is always going to be the holy spam. It just makes it's what starts the eventual spiral of White Mage just having the reputation of a bottomless pit of MP, especially if you have like a bard or a caster that's giving you mana shifts. You can't run out of MP on this job unless you're like really not caring about anything you're doing. So after you kill off those first two sets of banshees, this is going to crash into the island. Now there's two pulls left here. Some groups do both pulls together. It's actually a very easy double pull. But some groups also do them separately. It's these first three mobs, the two Cracklaws and the Ancient Emir. Looks like he's just going to do the normal pull. The ninja wants to keep going. I'm cool with it. If he wanted to keep going, I'd keep going, but it's a leveling dungeon. Like, a lot of people get really antsy about big pulls in leveling dungeons, and it's like, for me, I'm like, whatever, man. I'd rather a tank pull within his lane, and he knows that's within his lane, than me have to work a bunch extra because, you know, like, see, like, he doesn't even have aggro on a target here when we only have 3 targets. Like, it's really easy to hold aggro on just 3 targets, but if he is sure this is what his lane is, he's staying in his lane and he's not trying to do big pulls, I'm cool with that. You know what? I'll just DPS more. It means I have to heal less. That's the bottom line, and it means I'll just DPS more. So it's whatever, you know? You have this reflection of Karlobos, and you have the 2 banshees here. And then I'll just do the same thing. Nothing all too threatening about this. Karlobos does have some damage, quite some damage, especially if you're doing the big pull here where you pull all of them. It's whatever. None of it's a threat. It's just if you were fighting it all at once, the tank would actually take some damage. But because we're not, neither is he. See, I got hit by that, and I don't really care. That's what I have instant heals for, because this slow is obviously slowing my GCD. I couldn't even see it under my own holies, to be honest. Let me back that up so I can maybe see the animation a little bit better. Alright, we're already at the first boss. First boss is literally going to be throw regen on the tank and then go ham. This boss has almost no sort of stopgap in terms of his mechanics. So the boss's name is Lugat. It has no tank buster, first of all. That's the first big thing. It's not one of those, you know, dungeon bosses that actually has a tank buster. It has this attack, which does a giant, you know, half a room wide AoE. And if it hits you, it slaps you back as it hit that red mage, which honestly, I don't care. He's more than welcome to do that. I wish he'd just stand still. And then it's got this split damage AoE, which is whatever. I can just Medica 2 right after it, and then I don't have to do anything. And then I think he goes to the middle of the room, and he's going to pull everyone in. Specifically in. And then you just have to not stand any of those AoEs. Now, every time this boss does either like a pull in or one of the other things, or basically anytime it does either its pull in or push out mechanic, which are its two big ones, it's going to do more and more AoEs pretty much. You'll see here. He's going to do another one after he does more of these. But you see what I mean by, like, I basically throw a regen on the tank and then that's it. Because that's it. Now, Overtow is the opposite. It's going to send us towards the edge of the arena. And then we have the split damage AoE right here. Which, again, I'm just going to throw up that Medica 2, and then I could just go back to DPSing. Let the regen do its thing, especially because I have a size here. And then if he does, I think he will actually get to do another one of the pull-ins. They'll just be more AoEs. I prefer to just, no matter what I am, if I'm a caster, if I'm a melee, I prefer to kind of hang in melee range because, you know, you don't want to have to move a lot for that half a room wide slap that he does. So the less you have to move, the better. See? Just more AoEs. Not a big deal. And he's dead. Casting and healing? What do I have for my healing? Yeah, sure, why not? That's some free loot. From this point on, by the way, if you're looking for loot, I think every single treasure chest from this point on has loot in it. I think every single one has loot. May not always have the loot you want, but it always has loot. So this is another part where tanks sometimes pull big. Based on the way this tank has been playing, I doubt he will. Or he will. I'm actually very surprised because, or no, he won't. Okay. I was surprised because he didn't do the last pulls big, so I was gonna be surprised if he was doing these big. So basically, this is one where the healers can actually run into some issue. There's a lot of AoEs being fired around, so it's not too uncommon for your casts to be interrupted. He would have pulled these three plus those three that are right up ahead, and you'll see that on the main decks there, back the way we came, and there where we're on our way, sometimes there's giant AoEs that leave behind fire puddles. And if you stand on this beam in between the two decks, then there are none. So even if you are pulling big, if you can pull it back to about here so you don't have to deal with all the AoEs that are on the ship deck itself, that can make your life a little bit easier. I think you can also pull them up the stairs back there. Don't quote me on that. In fact, yeah, okay. Well, he's about to prove me right. Yeah, so he pulls them up to here on the stairs. You can't go any further. You have to kill these mobs before you can go any further than this. But if you pull them up here, you literally don't have to deal with those AoEs. It makes your healing a lot easier. If you're a white mage and you want to be standing in the group, then pulling the mobs up here is okay. If you're just a healer who is, you know, you can AoE from a distance, basically, I guess, technically Scholar with Bane, although Miasma 2 would require melee range, and I guess Astro can do it with Gravity. You can just stand up here so you never have to move. Or if you're just a healer who doesn't DPS at all, and you just don't want to have to move around, you could just stand up here. Because see all the AoEs down there? See how I don't have to move for those? So consider this a nice little tidbit. How much EXP am I? Okay, in this next pull, I'll hit level 62. And then I very quickly have to find a place to put thin air on my bar. Probably... yeah. Probably there. That seems like a good place. Since I do it with Holy and Presence of Mind, I tend to do it with DPS skills anyway. Now for this, I don't think there's a good solution. I think here, no matter what, you're kind of locked into having to dodge AoEs and whatnot. It's not that bad. These mobs don't hit that hard at all. It's just the 4 deckhands and then the skipper. So I'm just gonna stun him up. I know that the skipper himself has an AoE he can use. It's not a big one, but it is an AoE, I suppose. Luckily, these little ones usually die first, so I might be able to level up before the pull. Come on, it's so close. It's so close. There it is. All right. Let me type sec. Actions and traits, job, thin air. Oh, you know what? I'll do this. I'm just gonna use my mouse. Ah. No? Oh, there it is. And then I'll also put it on my hotbar so I can keep track of it. Alright. I just wanted to get the new skill on my bar. And now, basically, we can use thin air and never have to worry about running out of MP on big pulls ever again. See? Now, nothing cost MP. So this boss still has no tank busters and has a rotation. It's kind of like the last boss where it rotates between 2 skills and the skills get stronger the later the fight goes. That's all this guy does, is he just puts down these puddles right here and you just have to stand in between the puddles. If you stand in a puddle, it'll give you a stacking magic vulnerability debuff. You see that the red mage got hit by a couple there, so he's going to take quite a bit more damage here. Nothing I can't handle, but I'm going to have to throw out an extra read. Now for this one, he's going to target somebody, and he's going to pull them in, and then they have to run away. Very simple. You can see him doing it. You need to run further than that. You should run all the way to the wall just to play it safe. Alright, so I might as well throw out a Medica 2 then. And now he's going to do Shadow Split, which is going to summon clones of himself, and he's going to do that Shadow Flow again, where he puts a bunch of puddles down. But now each one of these adds is also going to put a puddle down, so you have less safe spin. Like, that guy is in a bad way. There's going to be a lot of extra damage that goes out here. Alright. Yeah, see, he's got 5 stacks, so that's really starting to hurt. Good. I didn't want that to be targeted on him. He's also got Vercure, so... Oh, I was going to say, that person's not running at all. Well, that's kind of annoying. Oh, it looks like the tank just interventioned him. One of his new skills. Alright, I guess I'll do this then. Normally, I don't have to spend so many GCDs healing here. My thin air just came off cooldown. I'd prefer to not use thin air and save it for the trash that's coming up. I mean, it won't matter. The boss will be dead before they get hit by another one. Alright. It's not a big deal. I still mostly only threw out a few heals. Like, I just threw out heals on the big AoE damage. You can see how low they were getting with their stacks, though. If I was a Scholar, they wouldn't get as low, or an Astro. Although I don't usually run Nocturnal for that. Nocturnal's really good there, but I don't usually run it. So here's another place where sometimes tanks do big pulls. This one hurts probably the most out of all the big pulls. You can do is, you could pull this entire room, basically. You start by pulling this Warden's Hound, and you get these few rotting captives. And based on his previous pulls, he's probably not going to pull any bigger than this. But if you run a little bit further in, you also... Oh, I did not mean to do that. I just used Benny. Pretend that didn't happen. I think I used it on myself, too. I didn't even use it on the tank. I used it on myself. Oh, the MP. Look at, see all those holies? Just free holies. Yeah, so if you do the full room here, it's a crap ton of rotting captives. That warden over there, plus the dog that I just killed. It hits really hard. It's mostly because I think both the wolf and the warden have a mini tank buster. So on top of all the ads, just there being a ton of them hitting the target, it just adds up on top of the few bonus tank hits that come out. This pull is this big no matter what. It's a lot of captives, which are, like I said, they're generally weak. It's just that there's so many of them. Yeah, you can see, like, that's just a couple hits he just took right there. And I think there is a tank buster? I feel like the undead warden has a tank buster. He does also have that. Whenever an enemy does that kind of attack, it makes your life a lot easier as a healer. Oh, he's got clemency also. He is trying to afford me some extra time to DPS. He's also probably just a little afraid for his own health, but he'll be fine. Do the double holy, and that'll kill a good portion of them. You're getting heals. Just giving you cure ones, because I don't got too much MP. And from this point on, there's only like 3 enemies left in the whole dungeon. But these enemies actually hit pretty friggin' hard, admittedly. So I actually am a huge advocate against don't do a big pull here. I know. It's ridiculous because you've probably never heard me say that before. I hate doing these 2 hounds plus the next mob. These 2 hounds hit just hard enough to be annoying, and it's a long run from here to the next mob. It's just like a huge hallway and then an open spot. I don't know. I just feel like going from 2 enemies to 3 enemies isn't really speeding things up when these are mobs that have pretty large health pools, and you pretty much have to single target them down anyway. I am a huge advocate against doing the big pull here, because the big pull is it's between 2 mobs and 3. It just doesn't feel like it's saving any time. What I will say is this, though. When the first hound dies and the second hound is getting really low, I do like to start pulling it towards the next mob then. But I don't just like those 3 mobs at full health. Just never feels like it's worth doing. No, I don't need that. And then this is the last mob before the final boss. Now, if you can bring a silence or a stun here, makes this fight a little bit easier. It's not like much happens. He shoots a few AoEs, but he eventually tries to fear everybody, and you just run he tries to charm everybody, and they just run towards him. I think pacification works too, which the paladin is doing, but I think he's going to have DR for it. I guess we'll find out in a second. Yeah, so seductive scream, if you can silence that or stun it. Okay, it got stunned there. Okay, that works. It helps a lot, because basically he does this attack next. He does a flood. If he hits you with seductive scream, or she, I suppose, then you're gonna get hit by that. It's not lethal. It just does a lot of damage, so it's unnecessary. So if you can silence or stun it, it helps a lot. Our paladin shield bashed it. Awesome. Commendation worthy. And then we'll be on the final enemy for this dungeon. I'm just gonna save everything. I'll throw him a Tetra and a regen, and then that's all he's getting. And then we just kill it here. And now we're on to the final boss. Now, for the final boss, healers and tanks, he does have a tank buster. It's an instant one, too, so don't let a tank sit around like 18,000 HP unless they have big cooldowns. Because I've seen it do like a 12k tank buster followed up by like a 5k crit, and that gets really nerve-wracking if you don't heal fast enough. By the way, this theme, oh man. Now, luckily, I'm a white mage, so I can just do things like throw a regen and a bubble on him and let that do the job. The Tank Buster basically looks like a giant slap. So this enemy is one unique mechanic. It's called Morbid Advance or Morbid Retreat. And basically, when that ability finishes casting, you'll be forced to run in whatever direction either your character is facing or the opposite direction from where your character is facing. For Morbid Advance, it makes you run in the direction you're facing. For Morbid Retreat, it makes you run in the opposite direction to what you're facing. You also want to generally avoid running through these puddles. They actually don't do a lot of damage, but I mean, be good. Do mechanics. So you see, it's going to make me run forward. I can't do anything. Somber Melody is just raid-wide AoE damage. Although there's always a Tank Buster right after it, so keep that in mind. He also takes like no damage. As I say that, he went Sword Oath at a time without a cooldown, so that's just a result of that. And then this is Morbid Retreat, so I want to make sure that my back is towards one of these puddles, or is away from these puddles. Oh. It's gonna summon more. Now the boss gets really out of hand. Yeah, now the outside of the arena is not safe, and most of the inside isn't either. And it's still Morbid Advance or Morbid Retreat, so now I just have to pay attention. Morbid Advance. And then also shoots an AoE at one person. It's random, but it's an AoE all the same. And then I'll wait for the Tank Buster, and then I'll do that. He should actually be fine. I don't think there's another Tank Buster for a while. Yeah, plus there's this Void Water. He's healing for about 3,000 per tick. The boss auto attacks for about 3,200. Yeah, that seems about right. He's getting hit for that much with what's it called? Oh, that's not a safe spot. He's getting hit for that much in Sword Oath. He'd be getting hit for a lot less if he was in Shield. Yeah, this boss, as you can see, does not hit that hard. Morbid Retreat. So I'm just going to run all the way this way. It was kind of off-center. It's fine. It's not a lot. Same deal here. It's going to be AoE, then Tank Buster. It doesn't matter. Oh, we already LB'd too. Yep, so it's dead. And that's it. That is the dungeon, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Sirensong C. Okay, we got level 62 in there. Decent walkthrough. Got to show you a few bonus tips that I didn't even have in my guide. And I'll give it to the tank. Tank did some fancy things. You always get a weapon from the final chest, by the way. You can get a weapon from the chest right before the final boss of the dungeon. But on top of that, one of the major changes to dungeons in Stormblood, and this only applies to level 61 to 69 dungeons. Only 5 dungeons in the game have this rule. It automatically rewards you one piece of gear usable by your job that falls directly into your inventory. This earring was that item for me. I'm actually going to go through my reward log. Yeah, the pair of ghost bark earrings of healing is placed in your armor chest. You don't have to roll against anybody for this. So if you run this dungeon enough, you will get a full set of armor for your job. More importantly, it also means you get so much loot from these dungeons that saving the loot for alternate jobs as you level through is something that's very feasible to do. It's also completely feasible to gear that job as soon as you go through the dungeon, because if you just leveling through dungeons, you will get a ton of armor from them. And that has been a major thing that's helped leveling a lot. It may take you a couple runs to get a few pieces of loot, but you know what? At least you're guaranteed something by the end of it all. It could be a body piece, it could be a ring, but you know what? It's something. No more going dungeon after dungeon after dungeon for 2 entire levels, never getting a piece of gear. You're never going to have to deal with that problem for Stormblood, and probably not for any of the expansions afterwards either. I'm going to accept this quest, and then that's going to be a wrap for this video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video right here. In the next video, we'll be going through Kugane and the Ruby Sea. There's a lot of quests here before we get to the next trial and or dungeon. In fact, the next dungeon itself is actually an optional one and is not part of the main scenario quest. So I'm going to wrap this one up, and the next videos are going to be a little bit less action-packed. Thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next video, and until then, take care.